I'm going to go ahead and talk to Ariana and some of my followers today about having faith over fear, what that looks like, how you can apply it to your life, and, what are some of the things that are holding you back right now. So I have, I see all of you in the room. We have Carrie, Dr. Ann, Mimi, everybody in the room today. So thank you guys for joining. I'm going to pass the mic over to Ariana. Ariana, please introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are and what you do. And then we'll start the conversation of faith over fear. The mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Allegra. Absolutely. Well, good morning to everybody, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you're located. And I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation. I've been so asked over this, seriously, of just empowering us to move past all of our fears and, walk by faith. So I'm Ariana. I'm the owner and CEO of Freedom Riders. I am a clarity coach. And what that means is I help people get really clear on who they are and their purpose, what they want out of life, and then strategize how to get there authentically and just showing up.
So right now,
who you are and how you were created to be. So I love what I do. I love helping. I love motivating. And I'm so excited to be here.
I'm doing live right now. Hey girl, hey. But I want you guys to make sure you're joining in the conversation as well. Sorry guys, I'm over here talking to my Instagram live audience. While you're there, I see you guys joining in. Make sure you come in on the clubhouse room for this conversation as well of faith over fear. But I think it's really important for us to understand that fear is something that naturally comes. It's something that is embedded in us from our ancestors, right? Like we have a sense of fear that comes up when there's danger, and I think a lot of times we forget that sometimes that fear can be misguided because of the simple fact that we've gone through things that created a false sense of danger, a false sense of fear, whether it's through our family members, our friends, through our employers, or whatever it is that we have going on in our lives. We grow up and we start to encompass this idea that the fears that sometimes we feel like are real are not. And I think that, when it comes down to evaluating that, where does our faith come in alignment with that? Are we, when do we actually stop to think if we're afraid of something, how we grasp into our faith? Are we actually operating in fear? Or are we paying attention from the beginning as soon as we feel it and we're saying, wait a minute, I know that is not that's not what I want. That's not of God. That's not conducive to my journey, my goals. So this is not faith. This is fear, right? Because faith is the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen, right? And so if you have faith, then that means that you see the substance of things hoped for, but you don't see it physically, right? So you have to make sure that even though that fear creeps up, even though some of the things may be right there in front of your face and it may be scary, no matter what it is, your faith, you're going to have to dig really, really deep. And what I do is I pray a lot. I'm constantly on my knees, because at the end of the day, I already know that when I try to do things on my own and when I try to scare the fear away and, all the things that are happening in my life, sometimes they cripple you and you may not understand how to move in a certain direction. So when I have my faith together, the first thing I do, guys, when I have fear, in order to overcome my fear with faith, I pray. First and foremost. So I want to turn it back over to you, Ariana, because I want to see, exactly what you have that you do when it comes down to first experiencing fear. It doesn't matter what that fear looks like, what it feels like, but what is your first step that you do when that happens in your life? The mic is yours.
Thank you. Well, if I could just back a little bit, because you brought up the definition of faith. And what's interesting is faith is the creation of something, right? It's a substance, which means I hope evidence to see. But what's interesting is when, people talk about fear, they say it's false evidence appearing real. And so I thought that was really interesting, because faith is the direct opposite, right? It's you having hope in something that you don't even have the evidence and you don't see it, but then here comes fear, and it's basically presenting an inaccurate picture because it's visible. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's huge. And when I feel fear, I do the same thing. I automatically go in prayer, but I also start to break down, why am I feeling this fear? Because when you identify the root of the fear, you not only deal with the fear, but you also deal with the trauma that the fear causes, right? So I can go to the root my fear and figure out where it's coming from, I then set myself up for more success going forward. So sometimes we deal with the fear when it's right there, like, okay, this is fear, I'm not doing this, I'm going to use faith. But the thing about it is, some people have to ask themselves, why do you feel so fearful so often? Why do you have so much fear in your life, right? Because the faith casts out the fear. So you should, not saying we all don't fear, but for me, I know I was, like, as a little child, I was always very scary. I mean, like, I couldn't stay home by myself. Like,
very scary.
I remember my mom would tell us to, like, go close the front door, and I would send my little sister to go close it because I was just, like, afraid to close the door. Like, I was just so fearful. So I grew up with a lot of fear. So in my adult life, I had children, and I had to, live by myself. And so I had to teach myself, like, this is not good. But it's very easy to just deal with fear in the present moment. But what I realized is mine was deep rooted. It's very deep rooted. So I've always been a woman of faith. And as I got older, my faith increased in God. And, I went deeper in God, and my faith got, deeper, and it increased. But my fear had came from childhood. So for me, when I say you deal with the fear, but also deal with the trauma of the fear, it makes you that much more powerful when you exercise your faith, because you're not only expelling the fear right then and there, but you're also dealing with the things that trigger you to fear. And that was powerful for me in my life. When I started to do that, like, I expelled a lot of fear. I don't deal with fear a lot anymore. Like, fear is not really a thing in my life. And like I said, when I do deal with it, I go through a process, because I understand that something triggers fear. It just doesn't come out of anywhere. It's a trigger. Maybe it's you grew up and people were telling you that you couldn't make it, you could never start a business, you could never be successful. And so every time you get ready to start your business, this fear takes over you. And yeah, we can stop right there and pray in the moment. But here's the thing, right? The Bible says faith without work is dead. So how do you work faith, right? Like, it's a working thing. So for me, I had to do the work. I had to do the work with my faith, right? So I'm praying in the moment. I'm dispelling the fear. But the work is figuring out, where's this trigger coming from? Because if I can eliminate the trigger, then I can eliminate dealing with that fear over and over and over. And what a lot of us do in life is we reach these points and we keep feeling that same fear. Like, okay, here I go again, I can't start the business. Or here I go again, I'm afraid to show up myself. Why? And yes, prayer is phenomenal. But I remember when God told me faith without works is dead. And prayer is not, it's a piece of the puzzle. It's not all of the puzzle. So you got to put the works in. So I do believe that dealing with the trigger and the trauma of the fear lessens the amount of fear that you face in your life. I turn it back over to you.
Whoa. Okay. So there was a whole, bowl full. Like, literally, Ariana, I was looking for a spoon and you gave me a bowl. So here's the thing. Everything you said is absolutely correct. And I think what was really impactful for me was the fact that you identify it. Like, when you talk about the triggers part of it, sometimes we don't identify that something is actual fear. Like, even for me, like, I remember being in a room, and I also want to invite people up for this conversation. I do see that we have people that were sitting in. So Carrie, Dr. Ann, woo. Okay, we're going to pull you guys up here. I want to hear what you guys have to say as well about the conversation, because this is really important for us to understand that fear, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's going to be things that get in our way. We're going to be stifled. Like, Ariana, when you gave the example of how you were a child, and as a child, you had certain fears that were so crippling to you. And as you grow up, sometimes when we're not acknowledging that things are triggering us, that things are happening to us in our lives, if we don't have people around us that are surrounding us, that love us, that are giving us the help that we need, we're dealing with these issues on our own as adults. And when we become adults at that time, no one else is going to help you, right? Like, all of the triggers and all the things that you have experienced, the experiences you've had that have created those triggers, those experiences have already happened. And those people that were a part of those experiences, majority of the time, don't even know that they did anything. Don't even know. You go back to some people where you feel like they hurt you or something happened to you, and they basically messed you up or whatever. Most of the time, they don't even know they did it. And so as adults, when we start to go into a mindset of faith over fear. A lot of times we're afraid. We do things out of fear because of those triggers that Ariana is talking about. But if you look inside of yourself and say, look, this is not who God created me to be in the first place. This is not who I'm supposed to be. This is who people told me that they wanted me to be, or that I should be. I don't have to do that. That's not my forte. My purpose is to walk in the will of God and what he has for my life. And so that's what we say. Faith over fear is more about you honing into what your natural ability, God-given ability is, and stop focusing on what other people are saying and doing around you, because that is not the thing. And talking about triggers, that is also the key point. Figuring out what your triggers are and finding out how to reprogram your brain so that you're not affected by those triggers. That's going to be first key and foremost. So I want to pass the mic over to the others on stage. Everyone we have on stage, a wonderful voice crush. Charlene is here. I do see Krista and Karan, always coming and supporting Karan. Thank you so much, ladies. But I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to Charlene for your take on the conversation as well. And the mic is yours, sweetheart.
Thank you, my lovely. Hi, Allegra. Hi, Ariana. How you doing? So it's a really interesting conversation, because those things that we are deeply afraid of, but let me speak for me. The things that I was deeply afraid of don't present as fears. They present it as reality, as common sense, as the truth.
Hey, Darren.
And so
we're on Clubhouse listening to the Faith Over Fear room. Feel free to join in on the Clubhouse room. But you guys can hear it here as well if you don't want to join the conversation.
I was most happy when I was either by myself or in small company. And when I was in larger crowds, even with my own extended family, who are, lovely and loud and boisterous and funny, I found that as a kid I would shrink. And so what really happens in the mind of a child, especially during the formative years, is that you can make up a story and believe that story to be true, when the story was really based on your fearful approach, your fearful interpretation of what was happening around you. And so I've been super diligent in looking at my triggers, super diligent in looking at the things that I'm afraid of. But the only way that they can become alchemized and transformed is by seeing them as a story. And here's the thing: when you hold that fear in your body, and it manifests as like a tight or a hot solar plexus, or sweaty armpits, or, tightness in the throat, whatever the sensations of fear are in the body, it can feel like the fear is actually real because the body says so. And so you just then agree, oh, it's just fear. And then you will do anything that you can to try and avoid those feelings coming up again. Ariana talked about, not starting a business because of fear and all of that stuff. And so you just avoid doing that thing that makes your body feel like that, whether it's not starting a business or not saying that thing or not doing that thing. When what I've started to really see as the truth is that they're just sensations. And the things that you meaning to them to be. Let me say that another way. The sensations of fear in your body only become powerful when you attach a meaning to those things. That they are more powerful than you, for example. That this fear is so overwhelming that you just need to close your eyes and avoid it.
Y'all come in the room.
Really stopped avoiding the things that I am afraid of. And it takes courage to look those things in the eye. And this is the truth. The truth is that I am loved. The truth is that I am valuable. The truth is that I don't need you to value me. I value me. when you are able to discern right from left, truth from false, truth from illusion, truth from fear, that
yes, right? Isn't that cool? I get to see y'all live too. I love this.
Opens doors that you didn't even know could be open for you, but it's because of the courageousness that you have had at the back end.
Bad reception here.
You know, at the back end, meaning when you were alone, you know, and it's midnight and you're crying and there's nobody to call because everybody's asleep, but you're awake doing your work because you know fact from fiction, and you want to Clubhouse, do whatever it takes to live in the truth. No matter what.
We're doing a room, faith over fear. Yeah. I know you have something to say about this, Javi.
I hand the mic over. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I don't know if you can hear me if I'm breaking up. I did hear everything Charlene was saying, but I know I have bad reception in this room. So, Ariana, I saw you unmute. If you want to go ahead and piggyback off Charlene, and then please hand it over to Krista, because I'm really excited to see what Krista, Karan, and Nadia have to share today. So I'll pass the mic back over to you.
And we can hear you, Allegra. I can hear you good.
Okay, perfect.
I love what Charlene said. It was so powerful. It was so amazing. And I like how she started off. She said her fear showed up as reality. And I think that's why people say it's evidence of appearing real, because it seems very realistic, but power comes in when you talk back to it and you tell it the truth, and you don't let it, as she said, take over you. You begin to tell it the truth. So that was so very powerful, and thank you so much, Charlene, for sharing. I love what you're doing, and it sounds like that you are dominating that space, and that's phenomenal, and it's beautiful. I want to say hello to Miss Krista. Welcome to the stage. You have the mic.
Hey, Daddy.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So, I just popped in, but I really...
I'm on Clubhouse, so make sure y'all join the room. Don't worry about my cracked phone.
Last night, and it was really talking about this, and I think that I've been in a room that both yourself, Ariana, and Allegra has hosted, and we talked about, like, therapy and faith and things like that, and it just kind of comes back like surface. And
my reception going bad again.
Actually manifested in my life. Like, I was raised in Jamaica, and I moved to Canada as a teenager, and then, you know, just really navigating life and transitioning into entrepreneurship. And I realized, like, early on, like, I was, like, I've always been, you know, outspoken person, pretty confident, but then actions and certain things and certain investments that I needed to make, I was, like, taken over by fear, and I had to just, like, rework that, and that's one of the things that, like, I'm a strong advocate for therapy and how therapy can help you to overcome some of that fear. And one of the mechanisms or the things that I use is, like, I think about, okay, am I making this decision based off of fear, or is this a fact? Like, is there reasoning behind why I'm not moving forward, right? And sometimes we feel that, you know, if you I don't know if you're a spiritual person, you're a person of faith, and I believe sometimes, like, I'll hear something from God, and I'm like, okay, this is something from my faith. Yes. But then someone around you, someone close to you, will try to, like, discredit it or discourage you from doing something, and it's really hard, but you have to always believe that your faith is the strongest thing that you have, and you have to always follow that, as opposed to resorting to fear. And even though it's really, really challenging, it's a daily exercise, and you have to ask yourself, am I moving from a place of faith or moving from a place of fear? And that's all I really wanted to share, and I yield the mic. Thank you.
I'm sorry, that was powerful, Krista. I just wanted to say, because I know we're going through the roster here, but anyone else who wants to come up and add value, please do so now, because this room goes by very fast, and I'm very mindful of your time. I'm only going to keep it to an hour. But make sure you guys are following myself and Ariana. We're going to add you to the Hey Girl You Can Club. That's going to allow you to be a part of all of these locked rooms in here. But I just want to make sure that you're joining in the conversation, because we're talking about faith over fear. And as you have already heard Ariana and Charlene and Krista talk about, how they overcome their fears and how they operate in their faith. Krista, you made so many wonderful points there. And so I just really feel like going to the basic bottom line of it is just, knowing ourselves well enough to know what we're hearing. And I think when we, like, just like you get downloads, Krista, and you know that it's from God, same thing. But it took me some time to get to that place where I was clear-headed, clear-minded, and I knew, what that sounded like, what that looked like. And so for me now, I understand, like, what that thought comes to my mind when it's a thought that kind of is out of fear, or it's a thought that's from the mind of God, where it's telling me that, hey, move forward, this is for you. And so in knowing, I'm just going to say this one last thing before we move over to Quran, but knowing that what God has for you is for you, that is another strategy for me. When I talk about faith over fear, he says in his word, what God has for you is for you. No one can take that away from you. No one can cipher it from you. It is made for you. So if you know that is the way you can walk in your faith over fear in anything, if it's a job, if it's money, if it's a relationship, if it's whatever you want, knowing that it's for you. And if you don't get it, and if it doesn't come your way, then it just wasn't for you. That's going to help you operate more in your faith opportunity. So I just wanted to kind of say that and go over to Miss Quran next. Krista, thank you so much for being here. Y'all stay up on stage, and Quran, I want you to add to the conversation as well. For a little while, I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood how the clubhouse rooms operate. Today we're doing faith over fear. Quran is speaking right now. Please make sure that you guys come to my clubhouse rooms. I do a room every single day of some type, and I want to make sure that you guys are poured into. It is a free app. You can download it and just make sure that you join my rooms and follow me on Clubhouse. I will talk to you guys soon, and thank you for listening. Bye.
Next couple of weeks.